This video will guide you through the bones of the skull. In the anterior view, you can see the frontal, zygomatic, nasal, maxillar, lacrimal, ethmoid, sphenoid, and palatine bones. You can also see the position of the mandible. Here you can see the bones forming the orbit, specifically the frontal, zygomatic, maxillar, lacrimal, ethmoid, sphenoid, and palatine bones. Note the bones visible within the nasal cavity: the maxilla, palatine, vomer, inferior concha, ethmoid, and nasal bones. In the lateral view, you can observe the nasal, maxillar, lacrimal, and zygomatic bones. Note the extent of the frontal, sphenoid, and parietal bones. Also note the mandible, temporal, and occipital bones. In the posterior view, you can observe the occipital, parietal, and temporal bones. Note the position of the zygomatic, maxillar, and sphenoid bones. You can also see the ethmoid, vomer, inferior conchae, and palatine bones. Lastly, note the position of the mandible. This superior view shows the skull sectioned in the transverse or axial plane, allowing observation of the base of the cranial cavity. Here you can see the frontal, ethmoid, and sphenoid bones forming the anterior cranial fossa. The middle cranial fossa is visible, spanning from the sphenoid bone to the temporal bone. The temporal bone and occipital bones form the posterior cranial fossa. Lastly, in the inferior view, you can see the maxilla, zygomatic, palatine, vomer, and sphenoid bones. You can also see the temporal, occipital, and mandible bones.